Welcome back. So there's been a bit of news lately. Obviously, I haven't been around very much. I'll probably update a video about that at some point. I don't know when. It'll be sometime in the next month. But let's go over some of the new stuff that has been announced. So, starting with the pre-order, we have the Shadows of the East infantry squads. We have a Chinese volunteer squad who joined the Red Army with PPSH 41S. Under your command, they'll be able to show the enemy the full might of the guerrillas. So, having a high BR guerrilla squad for Russia should be, like a premium one, should be pretty potent. I think that between the two premium guerrilla squads that are already in, like, well, I guess we should go over three, right, because of the Japanese, but I'm just going to focus on the two that I've compared. We've got the Soviets and the Germans at BR2. Between the two of them, I think the Germans made off much better than the Soviets did. The Germans have PPS 43s, and so they can, and I have very comfortably played them up to BR5. Whereas with the Russians, you can play an MP40 at BR5, but the Russians have so much better equipment that, eh, it really just comes, like, I'd rather just take the tech tree one. Um, But what this does enable you to do is run 3 guerrilla squads if you have all of them. And I don't think that that's the most ideal thing all the time, but particularly when you're defending, if you're like me, I find guerrilla squads much more interesting and much more entertaining of a playstyle. I like the ability to go in and line break the enemy and destroy their spawn beacons and harass them as they're approaching objectives. So for me, that's a pretty nice play style. Your mileage may vary though. But for example, when the Germans got their STG squad a few months ago, you could take the Tech Tree German guerrillas, the STG squad, and you could take the BR2 PPSH squad, throw them on a lineup, and if you were defending, well, now you weren't just defending, you were ranging out and you were fighting the enemy where they were coming from. And I like that. Um, as far as like how good they'll be, I mean it's a PPSH, right? It's a good gun. I don't think the silencer really adds much. I played around with the Thompsons for a little while and they're cool. I like them, but I didn't really feel like the suppressor was doing a whole lot for me. Um, I think it's just a side effect of the way Enlisted is. You know, you shoot at somebody and a bot is going to turn around and shoot back at you. It's just the way the game goes. And a lot of the time, you're not going to shoot at anybody and the bot's going to turn and shoot you anyway through like 3 bushes. Um, that being said, I think that they'll be cool. I think they'll be useful. I think that, like, tier for tier, they're going to be better as a BR5 squad than the MP40 squad is a BR2 squad. Moving on from there, for Japan, there's a squad of machine gunners with captured American bars. Who doesn't like the bar? The bar is always good. Now, this is going to come with 4 machine gunners and an engineer. Okay, and then there's the free soldier slot. So they are following the same setup. So you can either put an extra engineer or an AT soldier in there, but you're going to have to equip them yourself. So you're getting 5 machine guns. I was wondering, like, I was very curious to see if they were going to give us 6 machine guns because that would be the first. Um, I mean, I would like to have 6 machine guns, but this is probably the better format. And I don't mind equipping an engineer. So their bars, they should be BR3. All the other bars are BR3. Um, as far as I'm concerned, the bar's an excellent weapon. Getting them for the Japanese will be nice. I think in the past you were able to get the Polish bar for Japan. Um, in fact, I think you could transfer them between uh, Germany and Japan for a while. I'm not sure if you still can though. But that was always a decent weapon, and all of the American bars have always been good. I like the OG German premium bar. I like the like newer German bars. They're not German. They're like Belgian and Polish, I believe. But regardless, the point is the bar is a good weapon. I like the bar. And I think Japan has alternatives in their tech tree to the bar where Germany doesn't. Like that's the flaw with Germany, that you have all of these belt-fed defensive machine guns where you can sit down and really hold a position and put down a whole lot of fire, but you don't have good assault machine guns. Like the Russians have the DP series, or the Americans have the bars, or the Japanese have almost any of their machine guns because most of theirs are magazine fed, relatively mobile machine guns. So I don't know if it's going to hold the same value for Japan that it does for, say, Germany. But as a premium squad with bars, I think they're going to do pretty well. Plus, you can build heavy machine guns, which is always nice. Plus, you get this handsome lad as a portrait, and you get a nameplate decorator if you pre-order them. Um, we can see what they're running. Yeah, 44.99. That's about what I would expect. It's not terrible. It is almost full game price though, so you make your own decisions. Eventually, just like everything else in this game, they will be on sale. So if you don't mind waiting through this like pseudo exclusivity period for like 2 updates, you can probably get the squads half off. And actually, after they come out, if you only wanted one, you can usually get them individually. So there's that. Moving on from there, we got a new front line, the Far East. I think we all probably saw this coming. They kind of tested the Soviets against the Japanese in an event over the summer. That's where we got the heavy tank number 6. So that was a cool event. I'm glad that we're actually getting them in Manchuria. I think it'll be really fun. I've been asking for Manchuria for a very long time, so finally getting the Japanese and the Russians fighting, I think will be fun. In particular, I think it's going to be fun as a Russian. Um, I suspect some people are going to go into this and they're going to be like, "Oh, the Russian small arms are so good, and the Russian tanks are amazing, and oh, how can the Japanese compete?" But believe it or not, the Japanese have actually gotten some pretty effective equipment over the years in this game. Um, I think Japanese submachine guns pretty much match Soviet submachine guns at every BR. And I think the machine guns they have offer a decent bit of variety. Their real issue traditionally would have been anti-tank, but that's not even an issue for them anymore. And when it comes to air power, I honestly might give it to Japan. Um, there's the new event plane that the Soviets got. Not the Normandy Neiman one, but the the IL-10, which I think that's potentially a little bit more competitive than some of the stuff you may find in Japan. Plus, their access to rockets is pretty useful. But Japan's got a pretty potent set of aircraft, so I suspect they'll do just fine. I think the only place that they're actually truly lacking at this point are tanks, and I don't know that you really can or should do anything about that. I think it's fine to have certain aspects of nations that are asymmetric. I mean, the Ho-Ri is at the end of the day a very heavy vehicle. It should be able to punch just fine through the IS-2, but ultimately the Soviets did just build heavier tanks than Japan, so it is what it is. It's not really an issue, especially with the prevalence of infantry AT weapons in this game. But yeah, I think it'll be a cool map series. Looking forward to it, especially with how like rugged some of this terrain looks. I get tired of fighting in the same handful of cities in Europe as the Russians. That's why I'd really like to get Moscow more often with them at higher BRs. But this will be a good stand-in for that. Plus, this looks like they're doing a similar thing to what they did with the Battle of the Bulge maps, in that it looks like it's got some like more rugged countryside, and then it's also got more urbanized like town stuff. So it'll give a good variety of terrain. So finally, let's go through the weapons and vehicles. So they're doing something that I kind of suspected that they would do. I'm sure that I probably mentioned this at some point, but to refresh, I think that the way that Enlisted is going to evolve, it's going to evolve into coalitions. So you have the Western allies going into the allies. You have the Eastern allies going into the USSR, which we see right here, with Chinese weapons and Chinese squads being added to Russia. And then I suspect that with the Axis, they'll probably end up evolving into like Central Europe, which to be fair, much of it was in the Axis or was conquered by the Axis, so again, makes sense. And that kind of just leaves Japan, and then it depends on where we go, like time-wise, whether or not we actually stay in World War II or progress beyond World War II. Because if we go beyond World War II, I could see them combining Japan and Korea. If we don't, well, maybe some of the other like Indo-Pacific areas that are friendly to us post-war, but we'll see. We'll see. For the moment, though, we're getting the Type 88 rifle at BR1 for Russia. It's a Chinese rifle based on the Gewehr 1888, the 8x57 M88 cartridge. Should be interesting. Probably won't see a whole lot of use because it's BR1, but hey, maybe it'll be the new best rifle, and suddenly I'll be recommending that. Germany's getting the Key 7, which, if you've been playing Japan, you know this one. It's a cool machine gun. It does finally add that kind of assault machine gun to the tech tree for Germany. So that's a nice addition. The one that I think I'm more excited about is the Ferdinand at BR4. And contrary to what some people believe, I actually do think that this is the correct BR for it. I think that when you get a tank destroyer, it should always be a BR lower than the turreted tanks that it's competing with. You have Tiger 2s at BR5. You have a Tiger 1 at BR5 and a Tiger 1 at BR4. I would argue that this has so much armor that you couldn't put it at BR3. Plus, the Dicker Max is already at BR3, so it just makes sense to put it at BR4. Um, I think it'll be a fun vehicle. I'm hoping it's not just dead on arrival. A lot of like heavy quote unquote vehicles tend to be not as good as they ought to be because of the prevalence of AT weapons. So, we'll see. I'm excited for it though. For the Americans, we're getting the Browning 1919 A4 at BR4. I believe we already have a 1919 at BR5 though, but maybe I'm mistaken and it is also BR4. I'm always happy with more 1919s. I'm curious to see how they actually differentiate this one in game though. I know that it talks about how it doesn't need a tripod, but like again, we've had a 1919 that doesn't need a tripod. So, we'll see. We're getting the B25, which I'm not sure how much it's actually going to add. Like, on the one hand, you do get decent forward firepower, but we have the A20, and I'm not sure how much of a bonus you're going to get by having two more 500-pound bombs. You're certainly going to make the screen shake more. So, woo. When I do run my degenerate plane loadout, this is probably going to replace my A20, although I do like the A20 skin, so we'll see. Then Japan is getting another Type 2 at BR5. Um, this one is apparently an experimental assault rifle, so this should be interesting. There are two other Type 2s, I believe, in the Japanese tech tree, One of them has like a normal sized magazine, and I think the other one is like a 50 round magazine, give or take. And I like both of them. Rechambering it in 6.5, which I believe is the standard Japanese rifle round, or at least I assume it's close to it. I mean, if it's in this small of a platform, it might not be. It might be a cut down cartridge. Either way, I think it's going to be an interesting gun. Um, I don't know if it'll be better than the Type PA rifle, but I suppose they probably did need some sort of assault rifle going into the Russians with the Fedorov and the AS-44. That being said, I feel like the Type PA automatic would have competed just fine. I feel like that thing is like nightmare fuel for whatever Russians run into it because to be honest, even with the new 20 round AVT, I don't know if that's really enough to compete with the Type PA. I don't know. I feel like the Type PA is a very, very comfortable rifle, and you can get bigger squads with it, so that still probably would be my choice. And then if I wanted to run an assault squad, I'd probably continue running the Tokyo Arsenal SMGs just because they're if I'm going to, I don't know, clear a cave or have a dedicated like close in squad, having those ridiculous fire rates is pretty nice. Finally, they're getting the Cheeto late at BR4. Hopefully, this thing will stand up at least against the T-34 85s well, but, you know, I won't hold my breath. All in all, it's an interesting set of stuff. It's not a ton of stuff, but it's at least something for everybody, which is good. I think the most exciting thing, though, is the Ferdinand and probably the B-25. Everything else is kind of just a modification of something we already have. So let me know what you think down below. I'm hoping for a good update. It looks like it should at least be fun. At least we get to research some new things, right? And those Soviet guerrillas, honestly, are probably going to be pretty spicy. So as per usual, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.